In 2025, I sold over $1 million worth of product on Amazon, and this is episode 9 of me scaling my business to $3 million in 2026. In this one, we're going to go over February's numbers and give an overall recap as to how last month went. And before we jump in, there's one thing I want to mention. If you have not subscribed to my newsletter yet, it is linked in the description below. I recommend you going there and subscribing because I give free game each week on Wednesdays about how to start or scale your Amazon business. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. All right, so jumping in, I'm sure you guys are looking at the numbers on screen and are very confused as to why it's not as high as normal. I'm going to go ahead and explain that in just a second. So let's just get into it. So right now on our spend tracker for 222 to 228, what we have going right now is 412 units bought with an ACOG of about $21.45, ASP of right around 40 and 22 unique ASINs. And then those are looking at about a 34% ROI, 18% margin with an estimated sales of about 16, close to 17K and spend right around 9K. And then profits are sitting right at 3. So why exactly do these numbers look so low? So no, I didn't take any time off. No, the business has not been struggling. It's just very simply that I think one of our admin VAs had forgotten to update the status on a lot of orders. And now at the time of recording this, everything has been updated. So I can assure you guys that the numbers we see on here for how much I spent this week is completely inaccurate. And the only reason again to this is because the status of these orders were not yet updated in our portal. So because of that, when I actually go ahead and update this P&L for you guys, I have to abide by those rules. So these are completely miscued and we're going to go over how much I probably spent this week on successful orders. Okay, and then we can see our net profit at the end of February in accordance to, again, what has been uploaded into the projection sheet is looking to be about 24,000, which is going to be way more. I think it's going to be closer to like 30,000. So we have a lot of spend that's quote unquote awaiting shipment right now. And then net margin's like 12.24%. So with those numbers out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the Google Sheet just so I can show you guys what I'm talking about and give you an accurate number as to how much probably spent and probably made this week. Okay, so jumping into the sheet here, we can see that if we just start scrolling where this date range is for 228, we can see that there is an entire section missing because it's quote unquote awaiting shipment. So obviously this is why the spend is so much lower. So that's pretty much what's been posted into the Google Doc. Now, if I can go ahead and highlight all of the spend that's missing here for you guys. Okay, so we can see right now that there is just for the date range of 228, a pending spend of about $43,000. So I told you our spend is not that low. I spent a lot of money this last week. So I looked at that and I was kind of like, that's odd. But yeah, so way more in spend than we actually did. So we probably spent like 50K this week, which is just absolutely insane. And if I go ahead and do the same type of highlighting for our profits here, we can see that profits this week was looking at about 13.95. So yeah, it's going to definitely put us over the $24,000 mark, closing us in on about 37 to 38,000 in projected profits in terms of spend for the month of February. So unfortunately, you know, I'm not going to be able to have like the most up-to-date statistics in this video for you guys. However, next video will definitely have all this stuff and we can kind of go over it and review it. But for how we're looking right now, just besides all the awaiting shipment stuff, because I do think there's going to be a couple things that might fall off of there, is we have 4,400 units purchased, ACOG of about 24.87 and an ASP of $45. And right now we have already crushed the spend goal of 100K this month. I'm pretty sure this month on paper, I actually spent right over $150,000. And that's what's showing in my actual software portal. So again, makes sense why we have so much in the holds right now. So already just with that, we are $10,000 over our expected spend goal for this month, which is perfect. Profits are sitting at about 32K, which is 8K over, and estimated sales is about 202,000. So as you can see, we crushed every single goal this month. And again, we still have so much spend awaiting the actual process of being shipped and stuff. So we're going to have way better results than I expected for February, which that's going to touch on kind of what I prepare to do for March later in this video, because clearly spending $100,000 is just not enough. And it's undervaluing what I'm actually capable of as, you know, a business owner and stuff. So got to raise those numbers up, got to shoot for higher targets. So we'll get into that a little bit later. One more thing I want to show you guys is our Seller Central payouts before we hop into Seller Board. So we can see here that I've added all the payouts for this past week, which is going to bring our total payouts for February to about $113,000, which I think is really solid because you have to consider the fact that last month we had spent right around $120,000. February is obviously missing about 3 days in a 31-day calendar month, which is what January was. So with that, we are pretty much matching our spend to payout ratio 1-to-1, which is perfect for cash conversion. So now that we spent a lot more money this month, our payouts are going to get even fatter and hopefully start averaging about $5,000 a day, because I really want to start spending like $150,000 a month. If I'm being honest, I've started to see that we can go more than 3 million this year. So I'm definitely going to be ambitious. And again, we're going to crush this challenge this year. So really good to see that cash flow is not an issue. I'm basically just going to be rolling all the money that I'm profiting back into the business, because right now I really can't apply for any credit because my utilization is obviously high because I'm just paying with cash and then getting cash back to pay off the cards. So I'm still figuring out a way to get more credit. I don't really want to take any loans or anything that's going to charge me interest. Maybe open some credit, credit cards through a different bank or something, just so that they can pull from personal credit and not have any business credit on my profile. But yeah, overall, I mean, as of right now, we're still going to be able to hit spend goals, no problem. Just something that I got to be aware of. So let's go ahead and hop into Seller Board, and I'm going to show you guys the P&L for this week, and then we're going to show the pretty much estimated and like realized P&L for the month of February. All right, so in Seller Board here, we can see the stats on screen. This week, we sold over $64,000 of product with about 49 refunds, over 1,000 units, and about 11K, close to that in gross profit. Okay, and that is looking to be a 16.6% margin, which is absolutely phenomenal with a 4% refund rate. So let's go ahead and get our estimated prep fees here and also take off our total overhead for this week. And then we'll break this down by the week, and then we'll break it down by the entire month. All right, so you can see the number in the top here is about $2,500 in total overhead. This accounts for $1.40 paid per unit in prep, and then also about $800 for a week's worth of overhead, and taking that off of our net profit. So we basically netted around $8,000 this week. All right, so I just got the net profit up in the top right there. We're about to divide this by the total revenue for the week, and we are looking at about a net of a 12.7% margin. So that is really awesome, because if we're going to start cracking $200,000, $250 consistently a month at about a 12%, we're going to be doing over 30K net profit, which is just absolutely insane. And Q4 has definitely showed me what's possible. So we're trying to scale to the moon right now. So with all of that out of the way, now let's go ahead and see the entire month, and we're going to break this stuff down the same way we did for this week. Okay, so for the entire month of February here, you can see that we've sold over $200,000 in product with over 4,000 units, 187 refunds, and about 34K in net profit. Not net, excuse me, that's gross. So now we're going to find the net profit by, again, getting the average cost that we paid in prep per unit, and then also our total overhead and our report back. Okay, so total overhead, including prep and just general overhead, is going to be close to $10,000 this month. So let's go ahead and subtract this from the gross profit that we have here on screen. And we can see this month we made almost $25,000 in net profit. So let's go ahead and take this figure and divide it by the sales amount to figure out how much we got for our margin. All right, and dividing this total, we ended the month at about a 11.4% margin. So I told you guys that we were going to recover from the rough January that we had at about 7%. Really awesome to see that this month we're finally finishing double digits. And now we just got to keep this same moat going all year. So, with what I'm about to talk about here in the next couple minutes with where I plan to go for March, I definitely think we're going to have some fuel added to the fire to just keep spending very heavily to keep this margin up, because we are going to be adding almost $1,000 more of overhead to the team. So if you get an idea of what we're hinting at here, let's go ahead and jump into what I plan to work on for the next coming week and what goals I have set for March. So we'll just keep this stuff on screen because I think it's a little more entertaining for you guys to watch. So some of the things that I was working on this week was really just back to the regular ops. So this is just going back to, spending heavy. I was back in town again. So really just getting back into the groove of things and having the operation run as normal, which we can see that we absolutely killed it this week, over 50K in spend more than likely. The next thing I did was had my end of month meeting with my team. So we did a recap basically based on what went well, what needs a last minute check, and then also what our goals are for March. So I'm going to give you guys some insights as to what was discussed on this call. First thing we discussed was what we did well this month, which I believe that was adapting to the schedule changes that each VA kind of had to undergo. Our main VA, who's been with me since pretty much I started this thing, she was now able to reduce her hours from working literally every day to 6 days a week. So really happy that I was able to give her more time back for her personal life. And then one of our other admin VAs was basically getting finalized with the schedule we had made back in January, to where she's now working only 10 to 15 hours a week. We were able to use AI to get rid of and delegate a lot of the tasks she was doing, and made our own software back in January. So now her schedule works perfectly with how much time she has available. So really just figuring out time management for everyone this month, I think went really well, and everyone did their job. Everyone was just dialed on time, doing everything that they should be doing. And then we touched on some stuff that we need to work on for each member. So a big thing for the admin department, and more specifically our buyer, is going to be cashback. Right now, I'm very unhappy with where our cashback currently stands. We're only getting about $700 a month back in cashback. And I have a buddy who's literally cashing out $2,000 to $3,000 a month just off cashback extensions, which we spend close to about the same amount. So it really doesn't make any sense why we aren't getting cashback. I have audited our cashback portals before, and she clearly is doing her job job. I mean, we have hundreds of transactions for each week, but some of these transactions just simply aren't getting approved. I don't know why. Some of them are going to be said because the supplier flagged it as reseller or something. But again, I have a buddy who does the exact same business model as me, who spends almost the same amount. Pretty much, he actually spends more usually, and he's cashing out. So like, I got to figure this out. We did notice one of our cashback providers has been blocking a particular supplier quite often, so I just had my main admin reach out and see what's going on with that. But we got to get it figured out, because leaving $2,000 to $3,000 on the table is not something that I'm going to be taking lightly. And then the next thing is going to be just ascending our current sourcer to more of a managerial position and being able to take on more responsibility with things like repricing and restocking. Okay, so again, this is going to be stuff that I want to work on for the future. I don't know in March if I'm going to have him start learning necessarily like all of that, but definitely going to start giving some intros, because he is starting to become pretty competent at manual sourcing and figuring that whole process out now. And what I have noticed with him is that his time storefront stocking has dramatically decreased, unfortunately, leaving a gaping hole for that sort of sector of the business, which is going to set us into our new goals for March, because that is something that we're going to have fixed. So for the organizational goals, I'm looking at $135,000 in spend. I think $150,000 this month was a little bit unexpected, but we're definitely capable of more than $120,000. So I think right in the middle of $135K is a good goal to shoot towards. More software development and expansion, mainly on the first week of March. I'm going to be doing a ton of software, just dev work and stuff like that, because with these new hires coming on, I want to have the right systems in place so I don't have to retrain anybody who is new. They can just come on, be onboarded, and just have the process work right away. And I'll touch on what those software fixes are going to be. Next thing is just keeping an eye on Prep Center turnaround and performance. Again, our Prep Center has been doing really, really well lately, but we just want to make sure that that continues, because if they start slacking, we obviously are going to be in trouble with our cash conversion. And then the last thing is going to be a couple new hires, which is going to be a new sourcing hire to fill in those storefront stocking gaps, and then a new admin hire to assist us with placing orders. So because we've scaled up really quick, these two positions have started to really, I don't want to say start struggling, but it's just taking longer to get our routine things done. Again, some days my sourcer's not available to do storefront stocking because he's spending all of his time manual sourcing through a good sale, or doing brand searches on that sale. And then my order placer is the same exact thing, right? Because the sourcer just provides the leads, and then the order placer has to go and fulfill those. So we're getting to the point to where we kind of need a good mix of two more people to fill both gaps there, keep the operation running efficiently. And ultimately, I think the hires in terms of dollars that I'm spending is definitely going to produce way more back in revenue. The way I like to think about it is, if I'm going to spend to start people part-time at like $300 a piece, and then we give them incentives. So let's just say between the new sourcer and the new admin, I'm paying about $800 extra a month. And then I'm going to likely promote the current order placer to more of a manager that comes in and assists with order placing, and then looks over the entire admin sector. So she'll probably get a raise up to like $800 a month. So realistically, she's going from $700 to $800 a month just for her base pay. So I'm paying right around $900 extra in overhead for new hires. But you have to think now, if our storefront stocking gap is going to be filled to where we always have somebody on those charts and always looking for new products, plus we have a backup, and more so like a person who's going to overtake this probably for order placing, then what's likely going to happen is we're going to be able to get orders placed quicker. We're going to have more deal flow, and ultimately we're going to be able to push more spend through the door faster. So really don't think it's going to be that difficult to make that $900 back and to have a more efficient system. And I know I don't have it written here, but just off the top of my head, I can kind of give you guys some insight as to more particularly what those software expansions are going to be. So the first one is going to be a commissions tracking portal for my sourcing VAs. So right now this is all done in Google Sheets, and the thing that sucks about it is the same way you guys seen in the beginning of this video, how a lot of our stuff, if it wasn't marked as shipped, that I could not account for that as actualized spend and I had to put it on hold. The same rule applies to my sourcing VAs. So these guys don't get paid unless an order that they found profitably actually does ship, which kind of has to make us undergo a training section with our sourcing VAs about like, hey, these websites are really good to us, these ones are not so good. But that definitely does help create a better time balance for them. And I highly suggest, if you guys don't do this with your sourcing VAs and you just pay them out based on what they find you, start paying them out based on like what's actually getting bought, because you don't want to be giving praise for somebody finding leads from a supplier you can never buy from. And it's not really fair to you either, because you're the one who has to eat that cost at the end of the day. So just make sure that your VAs are basically trained to understand that, hey, my time is best invested into X websites and not Y websites. So tying that all back in with why I'm making this software improvement, basically when stuff is not shipped, I have to go back to the month prior and find all the stuff that wasn't shipped, do the the manual calculation, and it's really just a lot of manual work. So by building this into our software to be able to track commissions automatically, I think this is going to be a much more streamlined way for my time, but more importantly, for them to actually see how much they are earning daily, which is great because I think that'll help with motivation and just keeping them on track. And, obviously having them be able to see what they're making is super motivating. And again, it frees up my time. So that's the biggest thing I'm going to get rolled out this week before we actually start making the hire. Next thing, of course, is we're going to start hitting the hiring board immediately. So this kind of ties into our next week stuff. So really moving forward on the hires needed. So we've already got a job post up and running. I just basically got all of the SOPs and training modules and the hiring process from a doc area that I have set up in my drive, and we're just getting started on that immediately. And then the final software thing that I think I'm going to try and develop is finishing the Gmail inbox I had talked about probably a few episodes now at this point, a few episodes ago. And the reason why is because what's falling behind right now, what I'm noticing is that our backup admin who is responsible for changing status is falling behind on that with the increased order flow. And I would prefer if she could just have a way to get a list sent to her daily of, hey, this all needs updated, so that she's not spending time looking at orders that haven't had a new email sent to signal that the order has been shipped or canceled, right? Because she's right now just literally going through every order that's open, and that wastes time when a lot of orders might take multiple days before a shipment goes out. So really trying to figure out a way to build that out. I hope that I can have that done as well within the week. And then the last thing I also need set up, I don't know if this is going to be in the software or not, but I certainly want to get a way for my buyers to view how much credit we have on our credit cards, because right now it's kind of just me saying, hey, we have X amount on this card, X amount on this card, X amount on this card, when our credit limits are starting to not allow us to place orders. And then I check and it's like, oh, because we're overdrafting. So definitely got to get that figured out now with two people spending money on the same card, because that's obviously just going to be a cluster, and I really don't need to be sending messages every day. So definitely going to go and try and start working on that. So as you guys can see, we have a ton of stuff planned for March. I'm really hitting the gas hard, not taking any days off, not letting up at all. So tons and tons of stuff planned. And that's probably going to be all for me in this one. Again, if you guys are looking to sign up to that newsletter, the link is in the description below. Can't wait to see what we do for March. I really think it's going to be a pretty explosive month. February was absolutely great, so we're going to keep crushing. And until next time, I will see you guys in episode 10. Peace out.